Okay, here we go. This video is me talking about Sony and their recent troubles. This is the fourth in the Sony Isn't Fine series, but the title says it's time for Sony's come to Jesus moment. Now, what does this mean? I'll explain after the cut. Okay, come to Jesus. What does this mean? Come to Jesus simply is a old-fashioned Southern term, which means it's a moment of truth. It's when you can't mess around anymore. You can't lie. You can't hide. You can't deny the facts. And the fact is that Sony is in trouble. Okay, they are in deep doo doo. They are in deep manure. Okay, and what they're doing is not working. At least short term, it's working. Long term, it's not leaving them on very sound footing. But during this, we will also talk about how they can turn it around. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, we'll start with Sony's troubles. Okay then, here we go. Here we go. Sony's troubles. They sold their HQ in Tokyo, their old HQ, whatever that fuck that means, for a $50 million profit, which, in the grand scheme of things, is wiping your ass money for a corporation like Sony or Microsoft. For Microsoft, it's not even a wipe your ass. It's like wipe off the tip of your finger. For Sony, it's wipe your ass. Okay, and Nintendo, it's wipe your ass money. They're firing developers, shuttering, reducing, firing developers. Key senior assets are leaving. People who had been with the company for years are leaving. They're closing stores, retail stores. And that's not good. That's basically, I'll get further into why none of this is good. Closing stores, selling off selling off parts of the business that within and of themselves are assets and could be used to make money, and not just by selling them. And finally, there's a gaming media bias that says, well, Sony is fine. Sony is not fine, okay? Sony, as a matter of fact, of all of the big three, Sony is in the most dire straits, believe it or not. Mostly because they're so big that, like, 66% of Sony right now is bleeding out, and 33% is sick. Okay, so basically, like, 99% of Sony isn't doing well, but of that 99%, 2/3 are doing worse than the 1/3, but still, none of it is doing well. And we have a gaming media bias that tells us, well, it's not true. For example, recently we had a video from Michael Pachter talking about how, Iwata is a weak leader and Sony, Yoshida is a great, not Yoshida, Kaz Hirai is a great leader. Let me tell you something. When you're firing 5,000 people and selling off your headquarters and shuttering stores and shit, that is not the marks of a great CEO. As a matter of fact, that's all the signs that something worse is coming down the bin, but we'll get to that later. On to the next topic. Okay then, here we go. What are they doing that is not working? Basically, they're selling off assets that could be profitable if they were managed correctly. They're selling off assets that simply it would be the equivalent to me selling off my arcade machines for my business, or my beer taps, or my kegs. I mean, those are assets that I use to make money. Like, even if I'm in financial dire straits, these are things, my tools that I use to make money. They're firing developers, they're tools, they're assets, the creative impetus that makes these people money, and they're firing them. I mean, short term, yeah, we don't have to worry about that expenditure. Long term, you're basically a carpenter selling off parts of your tools, or a plumber, or something like that. I mean, that's fucking stupid. I'm sorry. Um, and the thing is that the assets that they're selling off were ill-utilized or underutilized. For example, they sold off the Vio business. They're selling off the Vio, or they sold it off, whatever. Vio, if Sony had handled Vio correctly, it would be a thriving business right now. If Sony, instead of simply doing what they always do, which is charge people an arm and a leg for something that you can get the same thing for literally 30 to 40 to 50% cheaper from someone else, and they jack up the price because it says Sony, they could have easily had a viable computer business. If Sony, because I remember when I went to college and I got a new computer, they had Vio, and Vio was like 40% more expensive than like the next most expensive computer I could get. Like, I got a new computer 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago? A year ago. And they had Vio on sale, and it was still, I'm like, 30% more expensive than the next most expensive computer, which was a gaming laptop. I'm like, this is some bullshit. I mean, who is Sony? I mean, the thing didn't have any better specs. It wasn't a powerhouse, but it's Vio. It's, you know. So, I mean, if they had properly utilized their assets, it wouldn't have been a problem. If it was, like, if they, instead of, when they had Vio, if they had said, okay, we're going to make a low to medium build of laptop, and, you know, it's going to be, nice, but affordable, okay? People would have loved them. They would have sold off the shelves. People said, you know, I can get a decent laptop for $500, $600, or, you know, maybe a low-end version that's just like minor bells and whistles, maybe like 2 USB jacks, a power thing, didn't have HDMI, for literally like 200, 300, $400. No, expensive as hell. But that's Sony's thing. They love doing that. But now we're going to talk about how they could turn it around, which segues into the next section. We have gotten into the how they can turn it around. 3 things Sony can do to fix these problems. The first one is do a deep internal audit and have an outside financial manager sift through the results. Someone who is not in any way, shape, or form tied to Sony, because Sony has shown that the people on the inside like to obfuscate and gerrymander and jury-rig results. Hence why we don't know how many PS Vitas they've sold, because they combine the sales with the PSP and that fucking gaming phone. So basically, they have to do a deep internal audit. This would entail someone going in and finding the parts of the business that are profitable, finding the parts of the business that are breaking even, finding the parts of the business that were profitable and now are kind of slipping into the red, find the parts of the business that have been in the red for years and just need to go, and find the parts of the business that just were never profitable, period. So that they can determine what needs to be cut and what needs to be kept, okay? They need an honest accounting, as I said. They can't, this bullshit with, you know, playing Russian roulette, hide the 3-card Monte with the, hiding, you know, the actual numbers of things in mountains of other data. It's not healthy. No one can keep up with that amount of data. And if Sony continues to bullshit their investors and themselves like this, it's going to lead to some major problems. It's already led to some problems, but it's going to get worse. And finally, Sony needs to make products for every budget. Okay? They need to make products for every budget. They can't just make ultra expensive shit like they've been doing. They need to make a TV for a college student who just graduated and who's, got his or her first job, and they just want a decent television. Maybe not top of the line, but decent that they can finance or just pay with their tax return or whatever. They need that, okay? They need to make a Blu-ray player that like someone can just take 30 or 40 bucks and buy. Okay? They need to make earphones that aren't fucking. They need to make cameras that don't require proprietary technology that's a fucking arm and a leg. I'm sorry. They need to do this. This thing where Sony overvalues their products, which in turn causes people to go and buy cheaper alternatives, is what it started 10 years ago, and it's just continued because they don't seem to understand that they're in competition with other people who are outperforming them. They're smaller, leaner, and faster. Which leads me to my conclusion, which is the next topic. Hello! It's time for the conclusion. The conclusion is basically pretty simple. Long term, the methods I just said to turn things around is going to help. That I said to turn things around, that Sony could do to turn things around, would help Sony get on better financial footing, both short term and long term. In terms of what they're doing right now, firing people, laying off people, selling off stores, everything Sony is doing right now should be familiar to even Sony fans. Blockbuster did it, Circuit City did it, Kmart did it, Bendix did it. You know what all four of these have in common? They declared bankruptcy, and 3 of them no longer exist at all. So, like everything Sony is doing right now is basically staving off bankruptcy. They really need to stop trying. They need to start going for positive and not just trying to stave off bankruptcy, because what they're doing short term looks great on paper, but for the actual health of the company, it's not doing shit. They need to completely revamp their approach. And the whole lying to investors and hiding numbers and trying to make, we made a profit because we sold some buildings. That's not really making a profit. That's like me saying, I sold one of my buildings. I sold my business to someone else, and so I made 1.2 million. But the thing is like over the next, like for that one time. But the thing is that if I open another location, like I would be making 1.5 million between all three places over the next like 2 or 3 years. And so, I just lost one of my assets that I could have been making money off of. See, it's stupid that they sell their assets like that, but whatever. That's my conclusion. Sony is not fine. Comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, like, comment, subscribe, please, all that stuff. Share. Comment section. I'll leave my source for all this information. Always the excellent playeressence.com, run by Furious Francis. Awesome dude. You should go to his site, playeressence.com. I'll leave the link to the description in a link to the information in the description section. So you guys have a good day.